I never grew up with educators that looked like myself. I always knew that wisdom was a powerful tool, but I also know that oftentimes we neglect it because of who it comes from. No,
Facts.
it's not necessarily just about being a king. It's more so about becoming a kingmaker.
Man, you got to be close enough to relate, but far enough ahead to inspire. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Let's Grow Together podcast, the place where diverse individuals and communities come to serve, connect, and grow in the areas that they're most passionate about. As always, it's your boy James, and I'm here with my brother Marcus. How you doing, brother?
What's up? What's up, family? Good to be back for season 2, man. Hey, I'm loving that intro, my boy. I dig it. I
Facts,
dig it.
facts, facts. It's one of those things, man. I almost wanted to throw the sound effect at the end, but I was just like, nah, I'm gonna just let that joint ride, let it soak. You know what I'm saying? But man, bro, how you
Definitely,
doing though?
definitely. Man, all is well, man. Beautiful, beautiful day. Bouncing back from Father's Day, man. Just taking some time to be present, be appreciative for all, man. No complaints. What about yourself, my guy?
Man, I am blessed, man, and I would be doing our listeners a disservice if I didn't give a shout out to all those dope dads out there, man, doing their thing. Fathers Day just passed, man. So shout out to you, brother Marcus, and again, all the fathers out there doing their thing, man. But again, man, super blessed, man. A lot of dope opportunities, as you can see, man. We got the new intro, a lot of new stuff happening, man. A lot of changes. So speaking of changes, man, I want to kind of switch up the tempo a little bit, man. So we now have a quote of the day. As you all know, man, let's grow together, family. I am the quote guy. So we decided to share that blessing or share that knowledge with you all. So today, man, I want to go ahead and bring up this quote, and this is actually Marcus's first time seeing it. It says, "Sometimes the most important thing in the whole day is the rest between two deep breaths." I'm gonna
Mm,
read that again. It says, "Sometimes the most important thing in the whole day is the rest between two deep breaths." And I intentionally highlighted the word rest. Marcus, I shared a story with you, man. We had recently we took some kids to Colombia, and I had that panic attack before we got on that boat. And I had told you, like, man, Sydney, Chuck, and a couple of other brothers, man, they hugged me. And all Sydney said, man, he was like, take two deep breaths. He literally said, take two deep breaths. So I took the two of the deepest breaths I ever took in my life. Like, I'm talking about two of the deepest breaths I ever took in my life. And I'm telling you, I've never been more relaxed in my life. But
mm.
I didn't think of it as like rest. I thought of it more of like just a pause, right? Like, let me just bring myself to the present. But for it to be a rest, like that resonated a little bit with me. How did you receive that, Marcus?
It's crazy you say that because I thought of it more so just being present in the moment. For me, it took me back more so to like kayaking. Like
Yeah,
in the midst of we handling business, we had a whole business meeting on the water, kayaking, right,
yeah,
with some of the young men. But we ask everybody just takes a time just to meditate and be present and just to rest your thoughts. And for me, it was great because it was just able to just really decompress and be present in that very moment and being able to be in tune with everything around us. So I like that in the midst of a social media age, all that, it's important just to rest. My partner and I call it refresh.
yeah.
Like, right? Sometimes mentally you have too many tabs open, like on your computer. Sometimes you just got to hit that refresh, which is that rest, giving it time to, kind of reset essentially. So
Yeah.
nah, that's spot on, man. That's spot on. You definitely had the panic attack with the right brothers around you though.
Bro, it's crazy that you say that, bro. I was like, man, I love my girl, but I'm like, my girl would have been with me, and I wouldn't have responded the way that I did if she was with me. So I definitely had the right brothers around me, man. So it's, man, mentioning, man, having the right guys around you, man. Our guest, I would love to get his perspective on this quote, just because he is a breathwork practitioner. So I'm interested in getting his perspective. So, without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and bring Ade on. Welcome, brother.
Peace, my brothers. How y'all feeling?
We feeling good, man. Blessed. Glad to have you.
Awesome, awesome, man. Yeah, so it's an honor to be here. Honor to be here. And thinking about that quote as it relates to breath, breath is something that I'm a breathwork facilitator. Been doing it for like the last 3 years or so. And when I think about breath and rest, I typically start my mornings with breath work. And so
Okay.
before I even get my day rolling, it's like I'm being conscious about my breathing. I'm making sure that I'm dropping in the right mindset, the right state before I get my day moving. And also, even throughout the day, if I'm ever feeling like off center, I'll go back to the breath just to bring it back home to center. And so, like, breath being a tool that we can use to really tap in and connect with self. And like you said, like you mentioned, that rest piece. So very, very similar to what y'all was saying. Uh, Breath is important. It's something that we don't think about consciously. It's like unconsciously we just breathe.
Yeah,
But there are different breath patterns that can bring us into different mindsets and different mind states that can help, center us, ground us, but also activate and give us energy. So breath is huge, man. So I love that
yeah,
quote. I love that
yeah.
quote.
That's dope.
He's on fire!
Yeah, yeah, man. He was talking that talk, man. He was talking that talk. Man,
Yeah,
I love, man. Did you have some, Marcus?
yeah, bro. I got a question because
Yeah.
one, before I met you, bro, I've never heard the term a breath work facilitator. Can you break that down to those who are in the same boat as myself? Like, right, what does that entail?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll double back on that because when I first heard it, I was like, "What does this mean, anyways?"
Hmm.
Like I breathe on a day-to-day basis. Why do I need someone to help me facilitate or coach me in this? And like simply put, breathwork facilitator just literally guides folks through a pattern of breathing to help activate either their parasympathetic nervous system or their sympathetic nervous system, either upregulating or downregulating. And so, really, you heard of like guided meditations. It's no different
Yeah.
than a guided meditation. It's just someone guiding you through a breathwork practice.
Got you. Got you. No, that's dope, man. Appreciate that awareness. Like, of course, are you familiar with? I believe his name is Wim Hof.
Yes, absolutely. One
Yeah.
of the OGs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, man, went down a rabbit hole because Chuck, he actually, is really big on like cold exposure and grounding and things like that. So we were trying to introduce some of the students in one of our programs to Wim Hof and just some of those methods. And the kids were like, "No, that's crazy. Like, why would I take a cold shower? Or like, why would I go put my feet in the grass with no socks on? Like, that doesn't make any sense." And we were
Yeah.
like, just think about it. Like, we come from the earth. Like, think about the cavemen, right? Like, they didn't have houses. Like, they, of course, they had fire, but like, generally speaking, like, they were out there with their feet on the ground. You know what I mean? But yeah, shout out to that, man, because Wim Hof was the first time I ever heard of breath work. But man, let's back up a little bit, Ade. Man, I would love for you to give our listeners, a little bit of an intro or a bio about like who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Chicago. My mom from K Town on the west side. My pops actually immigrated here from Nigeria, and they met at, or excuse me, Malcolm X College. I humble beginnings, very humble beginnings. Understood street life, but also book smart at the same time. And so I chose an engineering path because in a Nigerian household, you got literally three options: doctor, lawyer, or an engineer. And went the engineering route, but quickly found that I was burnt out, tired of it, and then chose to pivot. Got into sales, marketing, really using my people skills, personal skills. And then outside of that, started doing some like health and wellness stuff on the side, and really just kind of took a deep dive into personal growth, personal development. For those first couple years, it was more centered around mindset, like a top-down approach. But then after that, I realized like a lot of us focus on mindset so much that we forget about our emotional intelligence, taking care of ourselves, and in terms of like rest and relaxation and rejuvenating the body. And so then I started looking into different modalities to kind of help me develop in those areas, and stumbled upon breath work about 3 years ago. And my first session really just opened up a whole new world of things, just peeling back layers of trauma. Growing up, seeing things in the streets. Also, just from growing up in society, and seeing how Black men are treated in society. So the breath work just kind of was able to help me peel back the layers, removing the mask of who I felt like I needed to show up to be in order to fit in different places and fit the mold, as they say. But yeah, man, I'm no one that you couldn't just walk up to on the street. Very humble dude, always about the community. I love traveling. I'm a family man. I got two boys, and just really looking to serve my community with any way that I can. I'm also a financial advisor, and so right now weaving in financial advising with breathwork and wellness, in terms of my men's coaching, and then facilitating on a larger scale is really what I'm geared up and working on right now.
A melting pot of insight is what I hear.
Yeah.
I love it though. I love it. I have a few friends from Nigeria as well, and hearing you mention that the traditional path and the routes that you're pushed towards pivoting. My question is, how did your family react to that pivot as well? Because again, this is a very untraditional route that I'm assuming they probably didn't advocate for in the beginning until they saw how passionate you were about it. I'm interested to know, like, what did that support look like? What did those initial conversations sound like when you're like, "Man, like engineering ain't for me"?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So my mom is one who was always like supportive of everything that we did. My pops was as well, but he was really centered on, make sure you get that degree so you always have something to fall back on.
Yep.
And so initially when the conversations came up, he's like, why you spend all this time in school and now you want to, leave your profession? You leave in the safety net essentially. And it's not to knock my dad because like he's always come from a space of like you got to have something going for yourself and you got to have something to fall back on. But what I did realize, in hindsight, is that's just because that's how he was raised, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it, but it did limit him in ways where he wasn't looking outside anything else outside of the traditional route. So I had to have those hard conversations and just express to him like, yo, I did the engineering thing. It's been 9, 10 years I've been doing this. I just don't see myself doing this for the next 20, 30, 40 plus years. And I want to have a larger impact. And so after having the conversation with him man to man and just really telling him like what the vision was, he began to open up a little bit more to it. I mean, he still, every time I hit him up, like he's in Nigeria right now, every time we hop on the phone, he's like, so when you going back to get that doctorate or that master's? And I just got to joke with him like, hey, when the right time is the right time and when I can find something that aligns with what I'm doing currently, then I'll for sure go grab it. But I'm just not going to have a piece of paper just to have a piece of paper if it's not going to be something I utilize.
Yeah, that's real, man. I think a lot of times it's extremely hard for us when our parents have one idea of like what's right, and they're our parents. We love them, but I think every person has to go through a point in life where they're like, all right, I love you. What you gave me were some dope tools. It got me where I am, but look, this is my life, and
Mm,
although
Yeah.
maybe I'm getting a lot of money from this, but I'm not being fulfilled, right? Because I think that's what it is a lot of times. So I want to ask you, was there like a specific moment within your engineering career where you knew, like, man, this really isn't it, but you was like, but I need to keep going because of my parents, but like you, because I believe like most people know well before they actually decide to leave. So my question is like, when was that moment that you knew you should leave, but you decided to kind of stay just because you wanted to continue pleasing the parents?
Yeah, so it was about 4 or 5 years in my engineering career. I was working in aerospace, which again it was very lucrative. It was good. It was paying the bills. It was keeping me ahead, keeping me afloat and whatnot. But it was after it was a project we was working on the F-35 fighter jet, which, if I'm not mistaken, the government is still wasting our tax dollars on. And I was just sitting at my desk, like, man, I'm looking at the same designs, the same hardware day to day, having the same conversations with people who, you know, they're not very communicative. Everybody's in their own little cubicle. And I'm someone I like to be out and about. I love community. I love building and growing with people. And I just wasn't really getting that same receptive energy. And so, like, on a lunch break that day, I just got on the phone and called my brother, like, yo, I don't know if I could do this no more. And he was like, well, what you gonna do to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a defining moment where I was like, I know I'm not gonna be doing this much longer, and I got to find my way out, figure my way out in order to still have an income coming in, but where I could feel safe enough to kind of walk away. And so I made a pivot at that point and jumped into engineering sales, which was a little bit less on the technical side. And I was out there at least utilizing those people skills, but I was still in engineering for another maybe 2, 3 years after that in medical device sales.
mm, mm. Got you. So, I mean, I'm in sales too, so I can definitely imagine how leveraging that personality. That's a drastic shift from being in a cubicle, being isolated. So definitely, I can imagine you flourish in that arena. But I'm wondering, what was that actual segue of getting out? What did that look like? Because what I hear you say oftentimes, and again, just us being men in general, is like, yo, we still got to pay the bills. So,
Facts.
what did it look like to, say, buy engineering, which everybody holds on this pedestal, to
Hmm.
pivot to doing your first, breathwork session? What did that process look like?
Yeah, man, that was. So I'll start with this. Like the whole idea about it, it was terrifying. It was like, man, I'm leaving the safety over here and I'm jumping into something where I don't know if this is going to work out or not. And so really just having conversations with myself, with source, with God, and just like, yo, I'm trusting you in this season because everything is aligning for me to be able to make this pivot. But at the same time, there's the self-doubt that creeps in, there's the worry that creeps in. And so just really finding a way to not believe in self, but know that I could bet on myself. So that transition looked like gradually, like booking sessions, part time, spare time around the schedule, finding different events where I could, be able to do those services while still working until I was able to transition and be more aligned in a situation where I was like, okay, I feel like I could fully step away from engineering and I can really just focus on building community and serving the community.
Oh, that's so dope. I love how you said you were like, man, while I was still working, I found time to go and pretty much lead and facilitate sessions. So like, what was your first experience like fully facilitating a session? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. Man, those sessions, a lot comes through. And so the first session, obviously, there's nerves there. There's, man, this is new to me. So you got imposter syndrome that creeps in. Um, and this is a whole new space. And so, really, just getting grounded, doing some breath work myself before
Mm-hmm.
the session, um, and like literally just having a conversation with that first client. It was like, hey, I'm new to this. This is, and at first I was doing it free of charge, just really to get the
Mm-hmm.
reviews, get the feedback, and just get information and insight from the person that I was leading on ways that I could improve, ways that I could get better. And so coming in it with an open heart, an open mind, but also, just letting the person know up front, like this is what it is, and I'm looking for the feedback that you have. I think it just kind of allowed the space to be clear for me to just show up myself, but also for the person to feel comfortable and confident. And like, hey, I know this guy is new. He's not trying to BS me. He's really just really trying to serve from a genuine space. So again, showing up authentically, what I think was the point that allowed that first session to go well, and then ever since then, it's just been up from there.
That's real.
Nah, that's a must. So I just want to confirm you are doing this full time right now. This is your 9 to 5 that you're doing on a consistent basis, right?
So breath work is something that I fit in the cracks of my schedule still because I'm really focused on the financial planning and then the men's coaching. So
Okay.
breathwork sessions I do one-offs. I do group sessions. I got a group session that should be coming up for Chicago Insight Hospital. So that'll be dope coming up soon. But I'm really focused on the men's coaching and that platform that I'm building out, which is going to be launching in the next month or so.
Dope.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about that. Like, what do those collective sessions look like? Because again, James and I are always big talking about the mastermind, right? Putting a group of brothers together in the huddle, putting their heads together, brainstorming on something. What does it look like on your end, and especially with incorporating the breath work in the midst of these workshops as well? Paint a little bit of a picture for us.
Yeah, so it's like a full men's group. I'm actually leading a couple men's groups here in Chicago, and traditionally, how it runs is we'll do some movement first. So y'all know Sydney; he's all about movement
Yeah.
yoga. So we'll do some yoga, we'll do some stretching, we'll do some maybe like push-ups, 420s, burpees, sit-ups, and then like some just body weight squats. Typically in the men's group, just to like because most men they can connect on a level of working out. It's something that we're all familiar with. So it
Mm-hmm.
really just like what it does is just puts us all on a level playing field and it builds a connection. And then from there we dive into a short like 30-minute breathwork session. Typically I'll lead that for about 30 minutes, and there's two separate breath patterns: one that upregulates the nervous system, one that downregulates the nervous system, triggering like emotional release, trauma releases, And also just to kind of like you, like Sydney says it all the time. Every time I do a breathwork session with him, he's like, "Man, that lower back pain that I had, as soon as we got to breathing, I was able to kind of breathe through that." And so after the breathwork session, I usually open it up just to like a space where men can like literally be vulnerable and have conversations that they don't typically have.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really how the men's circles go. And it's usually like a 90 minutes. So we do 30 minutes of movement, 30 minutes of breath work, and then 30 minutes of just conversation where I'm bringing like journal prompts or like prompts just around like what's going on in a man's life and how they could be supported by the other men in the space.
Oh man, Ade, I love that because that's actually how we connected. Not at your men's circle, but shout out to Ali. We had a separate men's circle where we came out, and I was just hearing like Ade just talk about just what he did and just his transition from engineering into the breath work, and I was just like that sounded very similar to my transition from the financial sector into mentorship. So man, shout out to you. I'm reading this book, and it introduced a concept to me that was like mind blowing because I'm also a facilitator. I facilitate restorative justice and practice circles, and I was reading this book, and usually we be like, man, we want to create a safe space. We want to create a safe space. And in this book I was reading, I got it right here in front of me, but I don't know. I don't know what the title is. I just know it's about putting on effective workshops. But it was like, not only do you need to create a safe space as a facilitator, you need to also create a transformational space. And I was like, oh my God, that's so good. I was like, that's so good. So talk about some of those like transformations that you've seen, because in my experience with breathwork, like, I haven't had many sessions, but like the videos that I've seen, like it could get wicked. So just kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so because breath work, and there's many different types of breath work, so I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to like throw a blanket over all of it.
Yeah.
There's holotropic breath work, there's somatic breath work. Somatic breath work is where I've been kind of trained and focused and centered on. And so
Gotcha.
that first round of breathing, we're breathing in through the mouth and out through the mouth. It's typically not how we're supposed to breathe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we need to be breathing in through our nose, out through our mouth. But when you breathe in through the mouth and out through the mouth, it's activating and elevating your parasympathetic nervous system, which is allowing you to release things that are typically stuck and repressed in the body. So we all go through life. We got stressors, we got work, we got bills, we have kids, we have life that's weighing on us. And us as men, we typically tend to carry that stuff or put it in a closet and we don't talk about it, we don't express it. And so what happens is over time, it becomes suppressed and repressed in the body, which creates dis-ease or discomfort or back pains or neck pains, or even like gut problems. And so when you get to breathing, a lot of that stuff starts to open up. Some emotions may come through. I always tell people in the session, just allow the body to do what the body needs. The breath
Yeah.
is the tool. I'm just here guiding, but allow the body to do what it needs to do. And that may look like you may see guys in there yelling, screaming, like you said, it could get
Mm-hmm.
wicked.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are in there and they end up singing, they end up crying.
Yep.
Some people end up getting up and dancing. Those are all forms of the body releasing or moving anything that may be stuck or repressed.
Yeah, that's real good. Real quick, Marcus, because I know you got some fire. When you said allow, it also made me think about this other portion of the book, and it was talking about the 5 parts of like a great session, because they were talking about yoga, but also they talked about breath work a little bit too. But he said breathe, relax, feel, watch, and allow. Like those are like basically the 5 stages of like a phenomenal session. And I was just like, bro, again, just having been in so many circles, I'm just like, that is literally a 5-step process. Like if you literally just breathe, like relax, feel, just watch, like observe, because as a facilitator, Marcus, you can relate to this. There's a portion where we have the talking piece, and we say, hey, if you don't want to talk, you could pass it. That's you just watching and listening, and you're still able to absorb all the energy in the room. So when you said allow, I was like, yeah, I gotta get this to the Let's Grow Together family. But Marcus, you got it.
Now that's it. I mean, he kind of spoke on it. Just being men in general, especially black men's. I think oftentimes we have emotions all over the spectrum. And right in my earlier days, just the way that I decompressed and let go was playing football. Right, smacking somebody on the field. That's how I let it out. Obviously, we aren't in position to do that as much now. But for the circle that I talk to on a consistent basis, I ask them like, "What does decompression look like?" And 9 out of 10 times, it's working out right? It's doing something we like, or it's just being alone. We don't really take the time to think about just taking time to breathe, be present, the grounding, these
That's
things that
real.
are a little bit taboo to us. So hearing, other black men doing these things, one, I love it. I think the biggest piece associated with this is getting out of your comfort zone. Because
Right.
obviously there's no way you can grow doing the same thing that you've done on a consistent basis, right? It's all about being exposed to new things. And I know Jay, James, you know my guy Jay. That's the
Yeah.
wild card out the group for us. That helps always
Yeah.
kind of bring my horizon. But it's it's crazy how simplistic it is sometimes. It's just to be in tune with your own breath. And obviously it can get complex because I never knew there was all these different formats associated with breathing.
Yeah.
But I have realized there's a drastic difference when I do start off my day meditating and when I do not. It's a drastically
Yes.
different person. It
Facts.
almost reminds me of what Alex said. Like I would hate to see me without my psychologist, right? Or without my
Yeah.
therapist, right? I kind of feel the
Right.
same way now. Like when I don't meditate, there's so much built up. And I have to be intentional with communicating to my wife, like, hey, babe, like this ain't even on you. I got some
Mm-hmm.
stuff going on. So learning this other tool that I can add to my tool belt, like I'm excited really to put some of these things in play. But my question would be for you is somebody who's a beginner, right, doesn't know anything about breath work, right, never meditated, anything of that nature. What are a few easy steps that they can actually implement as well, right? And again, this may be for the local entrepreneur who's wearing 5, 6 hats, the single
Yeah.
mom, the all these different individuals in our arena that we're servicing. Like, if we were to give them just the tip of the spectrum, like, what would that look like?
Yeah, one of the first breathwork sequences that I was introduced to, and y'all probably heard about it, is box breathing. Box breathing could be used first thing in the morning. It could be used when you're feeling stressed, anxiety, even. And all it simply is you pick, a number of seconds, whether it be, I tell people start off with 4 seconds. You inhale for 4 seconds through the nose. 4 seconds. You hold at the top 4 seconds. You release for 4 seconds, and then you hold at the bottom for 4 seconds, and then you just repeat that. And you can do that, 4 different rounds. If you get comfortable with 4 different rounds, you can bump it up to 6, and then 8, and then 10. But that's just a small tip of the iceberg of a place where you can start, and you will literally feel a physical shift in your body when you do that. There's also 5, 7, and 9 part breathing, which is another, 5 seconds breathing in, 7 second hold, and then 8 seconds or 9 seconds exhaling. And you'll feel the difference with that as well. That's a good one you could do before bed. But the simple way to do it, I'll go on Google, simple breathing practices that'll get me through my day. It'll have like 4 or 5 different ones. I got 5 that I typically send people a free PDF, and we can also share that later. But in terms of breathwork and meditation, a lot of people see like gurus doing meditation and breathwork, and they in there for 60 minutes,
Yeah.
40 minutes. Like, like even when I started meditating, it was like my mind was always racing. Like I couldn't even get my
Yeah,
mind to slow down for 1 minute. And so I always tell people, if you can breathe consciously and be aware of it for just 1 minute before you start your day, or that 1 minute before you go into that stressful meeting, that will change everything. Like I've had brothers that come to the men's group, they come back to me 4 or 5 weeks later, like, yo, that little breathing pattern that you did, I done did it right before a stressful meeting. The meeting I thought was gonna go haywire, it went the best that I ever could have
Yep.
imagined, just from me dropping into the breath work beforehand.
Yep.
So
Yep. That's really spot on. Cause man, shout out to Cody. Cause he actually has his masters in consciousness, and he constantly talks about the reticular activation system, and the in layman's terms, that's just where attention goes, energy flows. So when you are setting your intention in the morning and be like, man, it's gonna be a dope day, you really breathing in like, man, I'm blessed, like that literally sets you up to have the greatest day possible because your mind is literally looking for different things to validate that point. So imagine if you
facts.
get up and you was just like, man, today gonna be a shitty day. Like, man, I got bills due, this, that, and the third. Like, more bills gonna be due. You're gonna get a parking ticket. You're not gonna get you ain't gonna be
More
no parking. You know
stress.
what I'm
Yep.
saying? More stress. Like we literally are magnets, and like we just gotta realize that. So, man, that's really spot on, man. I want to bring up something you said earlier. You said you do a lot of financial planning, but you mentioned that you want to incorporate that more into breath work. So, like, how, like, well, first off, why is financial literacy a crucial part of your coaching program, and like what unique strategies like do you offer with it?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Financial literacy is something that I feel like is under talked about in our communities,
A
BIPOC
thousand percent.
communities. Like in other communities and other areas, like they talk about it at the dinner table. In my household, it wasn't talked about. I feel like enough, and it's not to knock my parents. It's just like that was just the culture, and so I feel like financial literacy now is becoming hip, but a lot of our issues systematically, I feel like can be resolved from a financial standpoint. Like instead of leaning on, the government, instead of leaning on the man or the program that's supposed to save us or help us out, if we put all of our buying power together and we got our financial literacy right and our financial status right, we could literally recreate Black Wall Street, is really what
Yes.
it boils down to. Like we have the biggest spend of all nations, but we don't spend our own money with our own people. And so, like, financial literacy for me is just something that, number one, I want to weave into our culture more, but also the reason I have it as a part of my coaching is because I find a lot of men in health and wellness space, or even women and men in health and wellness space, or as entrepreneurs, like it's easy to run up a bag, right? A lot of us know how to make money. A lot of us don't understand the concepts behind keeping money or
Yep.
investing money so it's growing and working for us, as opposed to it just being a spend. So like Nip said, all money in, no money out. That's literally something that I try and like make it a point with my clients and the people that I coach. It's like we obviously we have to have money go out, but we want to make sure that that's minimalized while we're also having ROI and our money is growing for us. So I do a lot with like credit repair. I'm not a credit repair specialist, but I do have like tips and tools to fix your own credit. I myself, was able to help myself and my ex partner get out of like 80, 90K in debt to be able to buy our first home. And so that's something that I always like to go over with my clients. If you got debt on the debt sheet, let's make sure we take care of that, because at some point there's going to be another emergency that come up, and we want to make sure that there's no debt so that we can move forward. Another thing is life insurance planning. I think that's huge,
Yes.
especially in our culture. My dad, my pops would always say, or not my pops, because he had life insurance, but I would always hear uncles and, people around, the picnic table or, whatnot, like, why do I need life insurance right now? Like, I'm not planning on dying anytime soon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you got kids, when you got a wife, you got a
Mm-hmm.
partner, you got a home, like that life insurance is a big piece, because if you do pass, like what happens to your wife and your kids?
Yep.
Like you leaving her with a whole burden. If you have a life insurance policy, that life insurance policy could literally wipe off that whole mortgage payment. Another thing about life insurance policy, and I know this is a taboo topic, but it's something called infinite banking. If
Yep.
you look up, if you look up the
Bottom.
wealthiest families in the world, the Waltons, the Rothschilds, all these people, what happens is they literally have a family trust, and everybody has a life
Yep.
insurance
Life insurance
policy.
policy. Yep.
It's a whole life insurance policy that can grow with the market. And when they pass away, that money goes into the family trust. Now, as opposed to Joe or John or Jimmy going to the bank to take out a loan, they just take a loan out against the family trust, because
Yep.
that life insurance policy pays out, that 1 million, 2 million, whatever you have the policy for. And now you don't have to go borrow money from Uncle Sam. You can borrow money from the family and replenish it as you please, open up a business, do whatever you want with it. So that's just a couple of the things that I like to offer with my clients, just educating them on that. And then I'm actually working on getting my CPA license so I can start actually moving money around and helping folks invest. But I help people set up an account, brokerage accounts, take a look at your work benefits, 401ks, just to make sure that you're maximizing those tools. So yeah, a lot of that information I got from the good brothers at Earn Your Leisure and the
Yeah.
master
Yeah.
investor
Yeah.
Ian Dunlap. But yeah, so.
Yeah, no, man. Well, real quick, Marcus, because the life insurance thing is really key because, like, even on a very basic level, because you said something that's really key. Because I actually come from an insurance background, and like one of the things that I always used to run into all the time, because I would try to sell to my friends, right? I'm like, man, you just get you a little 30,000, this that, because I ain't gonna name the company I worked for, but I was just like, man, just get you a policy, and it was whole life though. Like it was actually
Mm-hmm.
whole life insurance. So I like, and I would explain to them the cash value portion and how it's building up value, and it's like I'm just like they just didn't see it, and I'm like, what people don't realize, and for people that don't know this, life insurance gets more expensive the older you are. So the more that you
Facts.
need it, it's gonna cost you more money. So and again, like I'm not selling life insurance. So I'm just saying for the people out there that don't have it, like if you are a young person that is considering starting a family or have kids, you need to have some type of life insurance and lock it in now while you're young so that it can stay relatively inexpensive, especially if it's whole life, because that value is going to continue to grow over
Mm-hmm.
time. And like like Ade said, like not like the infinite banking concept, but depending on the type of policy, you may be able to put a loan on that cash value. But life insurance is crucial in our community. Like we don't need no
It's vital.
GoFundmes. We don't need no GoFundmes.
Is
Nah.
vital, and it's something I've recently implemented for Avery, my wife, and I. And again, I'm looking at it. I'm not finna keep borrowing this money from Uncle Sam going forward. Like that. That was my intention off jump, and it almost shocked the I'll say our counterparts when I was talking to them and picking their brain. Like, yeah, so I can get this the value, and they was like, you did your homework. Most
Yeah.
individuals our age don't do any homework, and they're oblivious, and they just go sign off on whatever is kind of proposed to them. So
Yep.
definitely doing your due diligence. Two, making sure. So you talked about the life insurance. You talked about those other elements. Also, making sure you have a will, man. Like I've
Yep.
seen so many of my people. I've seen so many families divided over the bread when it comes right. It's like you talked about. We always talk about getting to a bag, but when you don't have it and you get a lump sum, most people either blow it or most people are fighting, and there's a conflict to figure out who's gonna get what as well, too, man. Like
Yep.
Facts. Yep.
James know, man. I'm a huge component of grandma house,
Yeah.
and oftentimes, like my house in my eyes is grandma house when I bought it. But I've seen so many grandma houses be divided and the property.
Mm-hmm.
Again, man, this those are some things just fundamentally we definitely got to be more intentional about. And
Yep.
again, you just being a jack of all trades from the CPA to the money man, all the above, man. I think that's phenomenal. I'm very interested to know how you incorporate the breath work with the financial advisor component, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to me. I feel like most of the stress, again, just speaking on our behalf, comes from money, right?
Yeah.
So now
Big
I'm
time.
gonna help you with your money, but I'm gonna also help you decompress in the midst of being upset or flustered over the funds as well. I
Yep.
think,
Yep.
I honestly, man, I think you're in such a unique niche that nobody else has really thought about, bro. Like that's phenomenal. But I'm wondering kind of how they go hand in hand, and from your experience with
Mm-hmm.
individuals who have stress due to money, while you're helping them with their breath work, while also helping them, get to the bag and save the funds.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful the way you put it because that's literally the gap I was trying to fill. It's like there's so many coaches out here, wellness coaches, men's coaches, women's coaches, and a lot of them don't have a financial piece to it. And while it's important for our health and wellness to be good too, like we also got to worry about our financial wellness as well. And so that was something that was big for me. And so what it looks like for me is when I'm guiding and leading a man through men's work and men's coaching, there are a couple different pillars that I like to focus on. There's emotional well-being, there's emotional intelligence, there's relationships, there's community. Like us men, we need to be in community. Like it's not cool to be a lone wolf. We might think it's cool, but it's not. Like we need community, and then the financial piece as well. And so how that works with what I got going on is like I offer a breathwork session or two, depending on how long the container is. So I do 5 week, I do 3 month, and then 6 month containers of coaching. And so I'll drop in the breathwork sessions to see what does come up, or if a man is experiencing a lot of stress, maybe there is some trauma. That breathwork piece comes in, and as it relates to finance, typically that is a part of the stress. Taking care of the family, taking care of the kids. It may be a situation, hey, I just lost my job. I'm trying to work on something entrepreneurial. And a lot of times we're mixing our entrepreneurship with our personal finance, and
Yep.
then that stuff gets intertwined. And so just really being able to look at both spectrums and make sure finance is good to alleviate some of the stress, but then also make sure that our nervous system is right so that when we're making decisions, because what I found is like even myself personally, just being transparent, like I find I make poor decisions when my nervous system is not regulated. or if I'm like in a heated moment and I'm making decisions after being in a heated moment without calming down and cooling down. And so, decision making is huge as it comes to finance, as it comes to investing, as it relates to what we're doing for our family, for our significant others. And so, having a regulated nervous system, which breathwork helps with, allows us to make clearer, concise, and more decisive decisions around finance. And so, weaving those two together and offering it in the coaching package, it just seemed like it just made too much sense for me, because I've seen, I myself have made wrong decisions, bad decisions as it relates to business, money, and I can look back and be like, yeah, I definitely wasn't in the right nervous system or the right frame of mind, state of mind while I was making those decisions.
No, that's spot on. I was just thinking, I think it's Inky Johnson. Shout out to him. He said, rarely do we rise to the occasion, but rather we revert to our training. And
Mm.
I said not think about breath work just being another tool and another training that we revert back to. Just like you said before that stressful meeting. Let me go ahead and do this little breath work real quick. I just think a lot of times that we don't have that. Like we just go out into the day just thinking like, all right, I'm tough, and then life, punch us in our face, and then something, like you said, we make bad decisions. So man, so shout out to you, man. Just kind of moving along a little bit, man. Like if someone was interested in like joining one of like your programs or anything that you had going on, like how would they get in contact with you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram. I'm building out a website right now. My IG is OBA period TOKUNBO Oba.Tokumbo. And what I typically do, I always like to do a discovery call, free discovery call. I like to do that, one, because I get to meet a person, get a chance to see what's currently going on, if it will be a fit, if there are ways that I could support them. But then also they get a chance to basically interview me. Like I open
Yeah,
it up, it's an open dialogue. They get a chance to really connect with me, meet with me. I'm someone who's big on energy and vibes.
yeah,
So like even my first men's coach, when I first, did a discovery call with him, it was like I had known this brother for years, and then later found out, he's Puerto Rican. He has Yoruba roots from his
yeah.
from his background. I'm Nigerian. I got Yoruba roots. It's like, okay, maybe that's why. It was just a vibe. It was just an energetic exchange right there. So I always do a discovery call, and then from the discovery call, I typically just shoot out an email with like, hey, these are the different options. On that call, will uncover like what are some of the things that they're looking to kind of work through in life right now. And if it is around finances, then I may offer individual financial planning if they're not looking to do a whole coaching container. If it's something where like right now the season of life is, hey, I have a lot of stress that's going on, I'm not really necessarily ready for a full coaching container, then we'll drop into a breathwork session. So it's nice to have both those two options and then a full package to be able to kind of support someone. But yeah, I always drop in on a free discovery call just to get a chance to kind of like break the ice and see where an individual is at, but also so they can get a chance to meet me.
Love.
Respect, respect. So as we pivot into our growth section, as we introduce the rest of the squad too, our ask is going to be as we pick Obi's brain. Obviously, man, this man is well versed in a lot of different arenas. So we're going to ask him what specific comment or question would he have to leave with our next guest on the podcast as well. So again, I'm interested to hear kind of what that feedback is, what that perspective is, so we can actually highlight this for the next guest that comes on as well, man.
Yeah, one of the questions that what my coach actually asks me quite often is what what is something right now that is currently either challenging in life or expansive in life right now, and what are we doing to be able to hold the container for that, whether it's something in relation to vision, business, entrepreneurship, relationship, any of those four different buckets. But what's something that's challenging and what's something that's expansive, and how are we holding the container to support that?
Mm. Yeah, I received that, Marcus. I received that. That's a really good question. Man, I want to ask you, and I meant to mention this a little bit earlier. Like, you're really big on nature. Like, where did that love come from? Because I follow you on social media. I'll see you out taking a hike here and there. I'll see you. I don't know if you actually like you plant your own herbs, but I see you doing that as well. And then I just see, like, again, just
Hmm.
see you out in nature with your kids. So like, where did that love for nature come from?
Yeah, man, I think it comes from just a background, like being really connected to my Nigerian roots. We live in a society here in Chicago where it's like we don't typically, especially being in the city, like we don't typically leave the city to see, nature and be out and about. I was a kid who was always outside, always in the neighborhood, running the block with my brother. But as I got older, I started to kind of want to be in nature more, like the
Yeah.
beach, the lakefront, by bodies of water, by trees, and like in the space that I'm in currently. Y'all mentioned it earlier. How important is grounding, getting our feet in the grass. Getting a chance to go, like, go, like people say, tree huggers, like go and give all the stress and all the worry that you have to a tree. Like literally
Yeah.
put your hands on a tree and be like, yo, take this, this stress, this pain, this worry, this doubt, this fear, whatever, and just give it to the tree. Like energetically, it receives it, right? Um, and so I just love being out in nature, man. It's a
Yeah.
space of, like, people say isolation versus solitude. Like I'm a big advocate of intentional solitude. Like, for example,
Yes.
especially with my situation, I like just recently came out of a relationship, an 8-year relationship, and it's like I could be in isolation and like shutting off from the world, but I chose, intentional solitude,
Yeah.
like getting out in nature, being grounded, being rooted, and just allowing nature to kind of like, almost in a sense, like hold me,
Yeah.
like with everything that I have going on. And my boys love it as well. They love being outside. They love being on hikes. I find it a nice, easy way to get like a light workout in,
Facts.
just like walking through nature, but also being connected to source, and like really getting a chance to like connect with my ancestors,
Hmm.
because they were of the land. When we look back at our roots, they were of the land. And so I just like being out in nature because we're so inundated with, this go, and being in the city, we typically don't get like peace and quiet, and nature
Yep.
is the one place that I could find like peace and quiet.
That's real.
Y'all need to, yeah, James, tell him he need to pull up to North Carolina, slow down a little
Yeah.
bit. Nah, check
Yeah,
us out.
man.
But no,
Hey, man,
not
I've been in North
what.
Carolina a couple times, and it's beautiful down there, man.
Okay,
I would love to visit.
Yeah,
look,
man.
just give me a shout.
Yeah, I was gonna say I came down there, man. Marcus took care of me, man. They took care of us. I actually have one more
That's
question
what's up.
as we close out. Ade, what advice would you give someone who is beginning their journey of like self discovery?
Mm. That's a good question. Self discovery can be many forms. It can be multifaceted. The one thing I'll, invite everyone who's on a self discovery journey, or working through, their traumas, shadow work, growing and developing, is have grace for yourself.
Yes.
One thing is have grace for yourself. Understanding, especially us as men, like we feel like we always need to have it figured out. Um, or like we need to have all the answers. And sometimes it's okay to not know. It's okay to be in this space of not knowing. Um, so yeah, just really find things that bring you joy, because a lot of us forget about our inner child. And I think the easiest way to get back to self and to allow self to grow and expand is to really tap into what brings us joy and what keeps us at
Yep.
peace, and not necessarily trying to fit the mold and find outside sources of validation, but really finding like self validation and finding what is important to ourselves. So yeah, that self discovery piece. Just focus on being your authentic self, man. Because for so many years I wore masks that definitely didn't fit who I was, at the core. And once I started removing those masks, it's like all the different connections, community, meeting brothers like
Yep.
Marcus, meeting brothers like Sydney, and now meeting individuals like yourself. It just all starts to come in, when you stop trying to show, trying to be a facade essentially, and you
Yeah.
just show up your authentic self. Then those people who align with you, they just start to come in.
That's real.
And man, authenticity is a superpower in this fraudulent world we live in. So
Yes,
I
sir.
definitely can relate to that.
Facts.
And
Facts.
you mentioned, you said something in reliance to your inner child, and it's so crazy you said that, because when I was
Mm.
talking to my therapist, shout out to MC, we were talking about what was my happy place, and I realized my happy place is water, because the beach, because of all my memories as a child going to the beach. But I also realized that, to me, the waves go hand in hand with my breathing, right? So now, and he advocated for when I am meditating, when I'm breathing in, understanding that, that's the waves coming on shore. When I'm breathing out, right, that's something of that nature, right? So I almost
Yep.
think about the waves kind of the tide going in and out
Yeah.
as I'm breathing
Yep.
in and out, and it takes me back to that place where I'm present. I'm in the midst of my childhood, standing on the beach, feet in the sand, and everything else just feels surreal, and I'm present in that very moment. So I love that, and that was good to me, man, because I felt that in the midst of reflecting on meditation as well. Last piece I would say is, man, one, I want to give your flowers, as we always do. It's only right, but
Appreciate that.
I love how, one, we are redefining the norm, right? You talked about tree hugging. I remember the first time I heard somebody mention the tree hug, I was like, this nigga weird. Like, but now I'm to the point where, like,
Facts.
but now I'm at a point where, like, bro, like, I don't even like taking my shoes off at the beach type. Like, bro, I'm definitely finna go outside and walk on this grass and get a little bit of that. I'm finna
Yeah.
go hug the tree. I'm finna go be
Yeah.
present, do these things. But us being able to expose the next generation to this to change the norm, right? Because if now we get them doing it, they're passing it off. It's like we talked about. These aren't conversations we have at the dinner table, but now we can, right? And now we can expose them to that. So again, I just love it, man, and that's why I'm so glad, again, James and I, Let's Grow Together family, was able to cross paths, because we're able to connect with individuals like yourself, man, where we can really influence the culture going forward and expose them to something that they may not see on the norm, man. So again, bro, I sincerely appreciate you. My last question to you is, does your name translate to anything by chance?
Yes, it does. Good question. Great question. So the full meaning of my name essentially is Ade means crown. So in Yoruba, Ade means crown, and then the rest of my name is the crown came across the sea. So I'm a junior. My dad was born in London, but he's Nigerian. I was born here, but he was obviously raised in Nigeria. So the crown came across the sea 2 times.
Question: is
Mm.
his name also does he?
It
You said
is,
he's a
yeah,
junior. Okay, that was actually a really dumb
yeah.
question. You said he's a junior. Man, we really, really, really appreciate you coming on. You know what I'm saying? We had, players mess up too, man. Players mess up too. But
Oh yeah, all the time. We
Great,
give grace though.
great. Remember.
yeah,
Exactly.
great facts. Fact. Look, I'm putting your stuff to use already. All right. But man, we really do appreciate you coming on, man. And as we say in our intro, like, this is truly the place where people come to serve, connect, and grow in the areas that they're most passionate about. Like, we don't say that just because it sounds cool. Like, we want to create a space where people literally come and they have these authentic conversations. Like, this is literally why we come together, man, to let people hear, stories like yours, and hear why you do what you do, because people don't care what you do until they know why. And so, man, for you to sit here and articulate your story, man, we appreciate you. Man, so thank you for blessing our space.
Yeah, no, I just want to give y'all flowers too, because this platform, I look back at the people y'all done had on the show, and it's just powerful. The work that y'all are doing, the information that y'all are bringing to the community, and the individuals that y'all are bringing to share that information. They look like our communities,
Yeah.
and I think it's really impactful what y'all are doing, and just honored and grateful to even be able to be a guest on here.
Man,
Looking forward to hearing and seeing more from y'all.
we received that. Man. But without further ado, let's grow together, family. You already know you can find us everywhere you find your podcast, plus YouTube. We out, man. We appreciate y'all also for tuning in. Marcus, you got anything for the people?
We'll be back.
Yes, sir.
See you
Yes,
soon,
sir.
family.
Peace. He said we'll
Trying to find me a balance in life. Why I'm still trying to gamble with life. Wanna be great, it gotta come with a price. Gotta watch what you ask for. I strive for these moments in life. I'm still learning and giving advice. I try carrying the weight of the world. See, I saw when I was losing myself. I had to catch my breath. Nobody got you like you got yourself. So it's important for you to know who you are. Cause in the dark, you gotta fight with your heart. Even Even if your heart broken apart, but they still gon' judge me. So tell me how that's been here for me. I had to see that everybody didn't love me, like everybody ain't for me. I took chances just to see for myself, cause for the longest I've been hurting myself, trying to blame someone else. I stand on it, don't regret what I did, cause I can live that my intentions were real. My heart just needed to heal. Gotta get back to loving myself and trusting myself and better my health. Nobody loves you like you loving yourself. You gotta know who you are. Gotta get back to loving myself and trusting myself and better my health. Nobody loves you like you loving yourself. And be